The station was never silent. Even in the still hours of dawn, when the mist curled over the tracks, and the lamps threw halos of gold into the fog, there was always the faint hum of life. The creak of old wood, the distant rumble of a freight train miles away, the flutter of pigeons on the roof beams. And there, always in the same spot, sat Eleanor Parker. She wasn't remarkable to look at, not in the way stories usually describe their heroines. Her hair, once a warm chestnut, had faded into a soft silver, catching the light in thin, fragile strands. Her hands, folded neatly in her lap, told the story of years of work, small scars from sewing needles, faint calluses along her fingers. What made her remarkable was her presence. For as long as anyone could remember, longer than most of the station staff had been alive, Eleanor had been there. Every Sunday at noon, sitting on the same weathered bench on platform 3. Passengers came and went. Trains roared past in clouds of steam and steel. The world shifted and changed. But Eleanor remained. The townsfolk had their theories. Some said she was waiting for a lover who had promised to return. Others believed she was guarding a secret. A few claimed she didn't even know why she was there anymore. That habit had replaced hope. They called her the Lady at Platform 3. And while most had stopped asking about her long ago, this story will tell you why she waited, and why, in the end, she left. And if you listen closely, you might just find that Eleanor's story is also yours. Eleanor Parker was born in the spring of 1947 in a small English town that time seemed to forget. The town lay cradled between rolling green hills and winding rivers, where the morning smelled faintly of wet earth and chimney smoke drifting from brick cottages. Her family's home stood at the edge of the main street, a narrow brick house with ivy climbing up its side. Her father, Harold, was a quiet man working in the post office. Her mother, Margaret, a seamstress who believed that every tear in fabric, like every wound in life, could be mended with patience. Eleanor learned her mother's craft before she could even write her own name. She stitched straight lines on scraps of fabric, while sitting at the kitchen table, the rhythmic pull of needle and thread becoming part of her heartbeat. By the age of 20, she had her own small stall near the station, mending coats, trousers, and dresses for anyone who needed them. Her work was careful, her prices always fair, and if someone couldn't afford to pay, she'd often take nothing at all. That was Eleanor. The station itself was the heartbeat of the town. It was where news arrived, where soldiers departed, and sweethearts reunited. Eleanor loved it there, the scent of coal smoke in the air, the murmur of conversations, and the shrill cry of the whistle echoing off the iron roof. One crisp October morning in 1969, she saw him, Thomas Bennett, a young soldier in uniform, his cap tilted just slightly, his smile shy but warm. He stood near the ticket booth, clutching a letter, glancing around, like a man searching for courage. Their meeting was almost accidental. She dropped a spool of thread, it rolled to his boots, and he bent to pick it up. Their eyes met. A few polite words became a short conversation, and before boarding his train, he told her quietly that he'd be back in a week. He kept his word. And so began a string of Sunday meetings that felt less like chance and more like fate. Over the next few months, Eleanor and Thomas met every Sunday at noon. Sometimes they sat on the bench at Platform 3, sipping tea from paper cups. Sometimes they walked through the narrow streets of town, past shop windows glowing with warm light. They talked about everything and nothing. Childhood memories, favorite books, the future they dreamed of. But Thomas's life was not his own. He was a soldier, and in the autumn of 1970, his orders came. He was being sent overseas. A conflict far from home, far from her. That final Sunday before he left, the air felt heavier. Eleanor tried to smile, but the thought of him leaving made her chest ache. Thomas took her hands in his and said, "When this is over, wait for me here. Right here. At the station." His voice was steady, but his eyes held something else. A shadow. Eleanor nodded. She didn't ask how long it would be. She didn't ask what over really meant. She simply promised. The following week, he was gone. At first, letters arrived often. Envelopes stamped with foreign postmarks, filled with stories of far-off places, and small sketches of things he'd seen. His words carried warmth, hope, but as the months passed, the letters became less frequent. Then, one winter morning, they stopped altogether. Eleanor's hands trembled as she checked the post each day, the silence growing heavier. And yet, she remembered his promise. Wait for me here. So she did. Every Sunday at noon, she sat on that weathered bench. The season shifted, blossoms in spring, golden leaves in autumn, snow dusting the tracks in winter. Friends told her to move on. Suitors came and went. But Eleanor could not let go. Over the years, she became a fixture at the station. Children grew up seeing her there. Commuters began leaving her small gifts, flowers, cups of hot tea, books with notes tucked inside. The local newspaper wrote about her once, calling her the eternal passenger. Some mocked her. Others envied her loyalty. And still, no one knew if Thomas was alive, or if he had ever intended to come back. The years rolled on, and Eleanor's vigil became part of the station's rhythm. Every Sunday, at noon, she was there, rain or shine. The station master, Mr. Collins, often greeted her with a nod, sometimes with a newspaper. He had been a young porter when she first started coming. Now, his hair was white, his step slower. There was Mrs. Harper, who sold flowers just outside the station gates. In the early days, she teased Eleanor gently about her mystery man. But after decades passed, she began leaving small bouquets on the bench, without a word. The station itself changed over the decades. Wooden signs gave way to metal, steam engines to sleek electric trains. Yet Eleanor's bench remained the same. The wood grew weathered, smoothed by countless hours under her hands. Reflective, sometimes, strangers would ask why she sat there. Eleanor would only smile and say, "I'm waiting." Some looked puzzled. Others seemed to understand without another word. She became a quiet landmark, the kind of story parents told their children when they passed through the station. "See that lady? She's been waiting there for years." It was a living reminder of loyalty, but loyalty can be a heavy thing. While Eleanor sat on that bench, life moved forward without her. Friends married. Families grew. Shops closed, and new ones opened. She kept every letter Thomas had ever sent. The paper yellowed, the ink faded. She read them sometimes, tracing his handwriting with her fingers, as if it might keep him alive. Softly, and yet, in her quiet moments, she wondered. Had he forgotten her? Had he chosen not to return? She never spoke those doubts aloud. To the town, she was the woman who waited. But inside, she was a woman living between two possibilities, that her love would return, or that he never would. It was late autumn, 2019. The air carried the sharp bite of approaching winter. Leaves, brittle and gold, swirled across the platform. Eleanor sat, as she always did, her scarf wrapped tightly around her neck. Mr. Collins, the station master, walked toward her, holding something in his hand. His expression was different that day, softer, almost hesitant. When he reached her, he said, "I found something in an old desk drawer, and I think it's yours." In his hand was an envelope, yellowed with age. The paper, fragile. On the front, in faded ink, was her name, Eleanor Parker. The postmark was from 1971. Her breath caught. With trembling fingers, she broke the seal. Inside was Thomas's handwriting. She began to read. Soft, emotional. "My dearest Eleanor, if you are reading this, it means my fears have come true. I've been gravely injured, and I don't know if I'll make it home. Please do not wait for me. Live your life. Be happy, even if it's without me. Know that I loved you, in this life and beyond it." Eleanor read it twice, and then again. Tears slid down her cheeks, slow and silent, not from regret, but from something deeper, the release of a burden she had carried for half a century. She folded the letter carefully, placed it back in the envelope, and held it against her chest. For a long time, she simply sat there, watching the trains pass. That Sunday was the last time anyone saw Eleanor Parker at Platform 3. After that day, the bench on Platform 3 sat empty. Weeks passed, then months. The regulars noticed first. Mr. Collins would glance toward the spot out of habit, only to find it vacant. Mrs. Harper still left flowers for a while, but eventually she stopped. Word spread quietly through the town. Some said Eleanor had gone to live with a niece by the coast. Others whispered that she had finally boarded a train to wherever Thomas was waiting. No one knew for certain, but her absence was as present as her vigil had been, soft, thoughtful, for 50 years. Eleanor Parker had been a symbol of devotion, a living monument to the promise of love. Yet her story is also a reminder that love is not meant to be a prison. Loyalty can be beautiful, but it can also keep us chained to a moment long after that moment has passed. We wait because hope feels safer than letting go. And sometimes the hardest act of love is releasing someone from your heart. Eleanor did not waste her life. She lived it in her own way. But the day she read that letter, she gave herself permission to step off the platform, and perhaps that was the journey she was always meant to take. Eleanor's vigil teaches us more than just the power of devotion. It shows us the delicate line between hope and holding on too tightly. We often tell ourselves that waiting is a sign of strength, and sometimes it is. But waiting can also keep us frozen, stuck in a chapter that should have ended long ago. Reflective Ask yourself, what are you still waiting for? A person? A chance? An apology? Are you standing on your own version of Platform 3, letting the years pass, while life moves forward without you? There is beauty in loyalty, yes. But there is also beauty in moving on. The heart can honor the past without being trapped by it. Maybe the lesson is this: that love, in its truest form, does not demand we stand still. It invites us to keep walking. And sometimes, the greatest tribute we can give to someone we've lost is to live the life they would have wanted for us. Eleanor's story is not unique. Across the world, there are others who have lived their lives in quiet devotion. In Japan, there was a man named Shigeru. His wife had passed away suddenly, yet every evening, for more than 20 years, he stood at the same train station, watching the commuters arrive. He never boarded a train, never left with the crowd. When asked why, he said, "This is where I met her. If I wait here long enough, maybe I'll meet her again." Soft pause, some might call it foolish. Others might call it love. And perhaps the truth is somewhere in between. Waiting can be a prayer, a way of keeping someone alive in the only place we can, our hearts. If Eleanor's story has touched your heart, share it with someone who still believes in love against all odds. And if you have ever waited for someone, tell your story in the comments below, because maybe, just maybe, your words will help someone else step off their own platform. Gentle, sincere, more stories of love, loss, and the lessons we leave behind are coming soon. Subscribe so you don't miss the next chapter.